had a couple of sonas over the years, some who serve different purposes, and some who I don't use as my personas anymore. In middle school, I had both Hawk Talon, a pseudo-Warrior Cats OC and character for my own original stuff, and Nightshade, a feline fox turned fennec fox character who basically originally was just a self-insert ripoff of Chrissy Chan's own stuff. If you don't know who she is, she's a cool artist who used to draw a bunch of Pokemon stuff. She still does too, but she had this species called feline foxes, and when I was in middle school, I was just over the moon about them. She goes by Kestrill now and has a lot of Dragon Age and Baldur's Gate 3 and other fantasy artwork, so I'm going to give her a shout out. Go follow her. Her art is great. I like it. When I got into high school, I ended up making myself different personas, but most of them served multiple different purposes. There was Padera, my Pokesona, who was a space-themed Ditto, and I would just have them turn into any Pokemon I wanted to because my favorite one changes on a whim. So far for the last couple of years, it has been Galissopod, but now I'm like, well, if my Pokesona is a Ditto, they could just turn into a space-themed whatever Pokemon is my favorite at the time, or at the whim what I want my Pokesona to be at the time. So it's a win-win for me. So instead of just making it my favorite Pokemon, I just have them turn into a Ditto, and the Ditto could be it. Yay! Oh, I love it when things work out like that. And I could justify it because it's a Ditto. Then there was Vendetta, who was supposed to be my vent Sona, but I never really used them for that. I might use them for something else. They had like a monster tail thing going on, and I still really liked the design, but they just ended up turning out a bit more feminine than I liked, and didn't really feel like it fitted a persona design. So I don't really think I'm going to use them for persona reasons anymore. So maybe I'll put them in a story someday. Then there was Fixer, who was my robot Sona, who was more of a vent Sona than Vendetta was, and I actually used them for a lot of vent art in my senior year of high school. I was dealing with a rough senior year and then with depression, and that was also the year that I started having visual hallucinations, and my auditory hallucinations were getting worse. And so I was like, hey, what if I just like put all of that onto this one character? And I had this like one particular thing that I would see all the time that would freak me out, and so that's just kind of how I coped, was just being like, you get the hallucination problems. I don't see that particular stuff anymore because my hallucinations usually are just auditory, but I rarely ever use them for vent art now. But I still like the character, and I might do something else with them, even if it's not really for Sona reasons anymore. There was also Delirious, my monster Sona, who was my first Sona for a while, but then I changed their design to be more monsterish. I still like it, and I might revamp them a bit so they could go back and forth between both designs. I technically have a new first Sona named Noom, who is like a goat, so I wouldn't use Delirious as a Sona anymore, but maybe for a future story. Then there's my Warrior Cat Sona, who isn't Hawk Talon anymore, but a new cat named Flameslate. I really like their design, and I still like doing stuff with them, even though I'm not as big into Warrior Cats as I used to be back in middle school. I still have a couple of Warrior Cats OCs though, so I could just stick them in with stuff with them. And then there's my Eldritch Sona, who's not really much of a persona. It was originally just something I made from a trend that Trevor Henderson did on Twitter years ago. Their name is Tina, and I wanted them to be a deer swamp monster with like a huge body horror thing going on. They're also a huge fan of Taco Bell. If you're not good friends with me, you should know I'm a sucker for Taco Bell. I love my crappy Mexican food. And no, I have to preface this because I keep getting comments whenever I post art of them. They are not one of those silly guys. They're not one of those dudes from Until Dawn or Antlers or whatever popular media these guys are from that you could think of. They're just a monster with a deer skull. They're not an appropriated version of native stories, and I'm so tired of people telling me they like my vibes OC when it's not one of the vibes. In case you couldn't tell, I was making a bunch of references from Real-Time Fandub, because I like that show. You should watch their Until Dawn one, that's what I'm talking about. But I still had that one main Sona that I made just to be me, and I made the Sona back in my sophomore year of high school, as I wanted something that could just be visually represented as myself, without having to serve a specific purpose. Just like if I ever wanted to draw myself, this is how I would do it. They wore an outfit I already owned, and they looked like me, but they wore a mask to hide their face. They even had my name, Daryl, but their last name is Arson instead of my last name. But when referring to them, I always just called them my persona or my Sona. Not that I hated calling him Daryl, but it'd also be really weird if I was like, well, I'm gonna draw Daryl doing this and that, when My name is Daryl. It's weird. I enjoyed this design for many years, but in 2022, I decided to change it after I made a decision to do more art commentary stuff on this channel. That, and I also always hated the fact that they looked like H2O Delirious's own persona. That was not intentional. I didn't watch any of his content around the time that I made my own persona. And I did start watching his and his friends' videos that same school year, but only after I was like, I'm gonna make myself a persona, and they're gonna wear a blue hoodie and have a mask. Totally 100% not based off anything other than myself. Oh, hey, who's this guy? Vanoss Gaming was really popular with some friends of mine, and we all got hooked on watching his videos. So when I redesigned my persona, I took off the mask, I gave him a different outfit that I also own, and my glasses, and I called it a day. But I'll admit, the new design was very unexciting. It's not that it's not fun to draw, it's just I miss the mask and the intrigue that that design had and the fun I had with drawing that character, and the new one just doesn't stand out and isn't as fun to draw. And they're alright, it's just not exciting to draw as my old persona was. And so earlier this year, I decided that once I finally have the time and ideas for a new persona, I was gonna design it and make it, and I finally did over the summer. I finally landed on something that was fun to draw. I enjoyed drawing it, and it's super great, and you saw them at the very beginning of the video, so let's talk about it. And so I thought for this month's video, it would be fun to go over the design process for my new persona. And fun fact, I actually did kind of reveal the design early. I hid them in the thumbnail of my recent mouthwashing stream. I don't know what the label on the bottle said at the time, and I was avoiding spoilers, so I never actually went to look up a reference to the mouthwash that they were drinking on the ship. So I just slapped my new persona's face on it and called it a day. I spent months making new assets and such for them. I really enjoyed the new design. I recorded a new Meet the Artist pin and a brand new icon, so that will be the art playing for this video. And the border for my socials is also going to change. I just have some videos that will be coming up probably for the rest of the year that will have the old border. So if you're wondering why the old border is going to still be there, at a certain point it'll just be the new border. So yeah, I want something that's a bit more easy to read. So expect that to be a thing. So let's get started with this video by talking about the new Sona design. If I didn't want to go back to the new design, but wanted something I enjoyed drawing, what should this Sona look like? It's gotta be something that I enjoy drawing, something that visually represents me. So I gave myself a few rules to follow, mainly as a list of stuff that I wanted to add into the design that fit my specific vibe. There are a few motifs in some of my works that I like, and I wanted them to be prevalent in this character's design because they felt like me. It was not only to make myself think critically about the design and push my abilities a bit more, but because I did want my own stuff to shine through and stand out. I wanted my new persona's design to be a visual representation of me, but to also show a bit of my interests and personality through it. So here's the list of things my new Sona had to have. First, the return of the mask. A color scheme of one or more of my favorite colors. It had to have an outfit that fit something I would wear. It had to look somewhat like me. I had to find some ways to incorporate both space and goat motifs in the design, and I also had to incorporate something in the design that involves my username. The first one on the list is a reference to my first persona's design. Guys, I missed the mask! The mask was safe and warm. The mask did no wrong. But it couldn't be the same one, so I had to be a new, something fresh. Something that was fun to draw, and fits what I would wear. Say for maybe cosplay or something. Funny enough, this part of my Sona's design took the longest because I didn't know what I wanted. It wasn't until midway through July that I finally figured it out. So there's this music artist who I learned about earlier this year named Yaelokre, and in their story, Meadowlark, they have a band of children called the Lark who are masked based off of this other group of beings called the Harkers from their universe. I'm not gonna pretend I know all the lore of Meadowlark. That's just a brief and maybe not super accurate summary I made just for this video. But one of the Larks, Clement, wears a goat mask, and it got me thinking, why not make my Sona's mask also an animal mask? Of course, I ran into another H2O Delirious issue of, I cannot give my Sona a goat mask because people will assume it's a Clement ripoff, because Clement wears a goat mask, and it's based off the Bell Ringer, which is one of the Harkers, and I can't go through that again. I can't do it. Mentally, I can't. So I decided to give my Sona a ram's mask instead. I like sheep, even if they're not exactly goats, and I'm glad I did because I love drawing the curly horns. I also made the mask a deep dark purple because we'll get to the color convention of that later, but It's just dark purple sheet. And I almost went with the Jacob sheet route of things, but decided against it because that would have been too many hordes to draw for a mask, and I had to figure out how to incorporate it without it being too busy, and I'm so glad I did it because I think the current design is very cute. So going into my color scheme rule, I decided to make the mask purple. My favorite colors are black, gray, blue, green, and purple. I didn't want to make a grayscale design as I love bright colors, and I use blues and purples a lot in my art and design versus using green. I went with purple in the end, using reddish purple and yellow as the other colors of my Sonos design to stick out, and I think it looks nice color palette wise. Although red isn't a favorite color of mine, it works for the palette I went with, and probably the thing that took the second longest to come up with. I was very picky with my colors. I needed to have my Sona wear a jacket because I love wearing jackets. They are big and soft and warm, and I love them. And so I went with a varsity-like jacket with a big and poofy hood and added a bit of a twist because the hood is very fluffy and cottony like sheep wool, and I wanted to add it on there for the Rams motif to lean towards into that kind of like black sheep feel. And I think it reads a lot like it, and that's one of the things that I really enjoy with my new Personas design is that just fluffy jacket hood. It's just so cute. And of course my character wasn't going to wear shoes. Fun fact about me, I hate wearing shoes and socks. I will wear funny socks when I have to wear shoes, but I gotta wear shoes for work and such, and unfortunately can't be walking around barefoot everywhere. But if I don't have to wear shoes, I am barefoot all the way. Don't like wearing socks or shoes. And don't talk about how gross that sounds, please. As for the pants, I wanted to go with a pants design that not only was comfortable, but also could work to kind of emphasize the sheep look I was going for. Like how some people draw furries that walk on two legs sometimes. I didn't want to make my new persona a satyr or anything, but it gave me the chance to include a bit of a space theme onto the pants by adding stars to the knees, and I think it came out very nice. I had a cute little vest, a nice little sash around the waist, and I really enjoyed the outfit that I gave them. This is definitely something I'll have to cosplay in the future. Now the reason why I wanted to add the space and goat themes into my Sona's design is because I slipped them into my own work. My Patreon, for example, has all the tier names listed as different goat breeds, and I use space-themed stuff on my social media design, specifically for my YouTube. I'm a space ace who likes goats, what can I say? Previous projects always had those themes somehow slipped into them. Like one of my old webcomics, Sponsternia, the leader of the main city was a like Jacob sheep goat guy named Mercy, and the god they worshipped was a purple goat god, so yeah! And so I had to slip those themes into my own Personas design because those are just little motifs that I go back to. Which brings us to our last aspect of the design, incorporating my username. At first I focused on the hawk part of it. Hawks are birds, so I could just put feathers in the design, but I was worried about doing something that could be culturally appropriative. I'm not familiar with what the feather and hair means in Native American cultures, and I'm not Native American, and I didn't want to do something that was offensive. So I decided to look at the other part of my username, furs. For anyone who doesn't know, furs is another word for gorse, which is a kind of yellow flower that grows out on fields. It's really pretty, and I went, wait, I could put that flower on my design. So there was a couple of ideas I had. One was maybe a patch, or having them stick out of the pockets of my jacket, or a little bit of it behind the horn. But then I was looking at it, and I was like, you know, these kind of look like round stars. So what if I put them all over the hood, like I have a bunch of like little flowers in the hood, but they look kind of like stars. So I did that. I put them on the hood to see what it looked like, and I actually really like that choice. It's like a really nice and subtle way of including my username into my Sonas design, and I think it wraps it up really well. I'm very excited for this character, and I'm so glad I can finally share it with people. I've been having this design ready since like my Canada trip video, and I was like, I would have loved to draw my Sona then. Gotta wait some months, and considering I had my September and October videos planned, I had to wait until November. I ended up doing a bunch of doodles of the design before I felt comfortable, just to see how comfortable I was with drawing it, seeing if there was any tweaks. I worked a lot this summer, so I didn't really get to like sit down and have like a straight up, I gotta just sketch a bunch of stuff until I come up with something I like, unfortunately. I did doodle it a lot after I, in my head, had something I liked, just to like have something put down, and I doodled it a couple more times, so like my initial doodles aren't really that much different from each other. But when you're stuck in a room with the dogs for 8 hours, and sometimes the dogs just want to hang out instead of doing anything, you could just sit and think of little character designs and how to fix them up in your head for so long. So I have new sprites made for this character, a new icon, and a PNG tuber. I'm gonna figure out how to rig that up, and I'll be using it in future streams. I don't think I'll be using it for gaming streams, but I definitely will be using it for art streams. I just think if I use it in gaming streams, it'll be a bit distracting. I prefer to just look at the game, but let me know what you guys think, and I will act accordingly. And that's everything. I do hope you enjoyed this video and get a little look into my design process. I want to do more design process stuff in the future, so let me know if you have anything you want me to specifically talk about in terms of character design or visual development. And as always, if you enjoy my work, you can follow my webcomic. I have a webcomic, it's called In Harmony. It is a horror comic, it has queer characters in it. If that's something that sounds like you'll be interested in, then go read it. We are almost done with Chapter 2. Chapter 2 is ending in December, so go catch up to the comic before the chapter ends, because I am currently working on Chapter 3. You can find it on inharmony.the-comic.org, or you can follow it on Tapas and Webtoons. I update it there as well. And if you would like to support me, I have a Patreon where I post early updates for In Harmony. So if you want to have updates 2 weeks ahead, it's there for you. Go read them. I also will be having another video coming, 2 videos with the exception of my podcast recommendation series, which I have another one planned at the moment, and I might be able to slip another 1 or 2 in before the year ends. I have 2 videos planned for the end of the year. I mentioned before wanting to do a media analysis video. I had that planned, but I completely switched topics on which piece of media I'm doing an analysis video about. That one I am hoping will come out at the end of November, if not the beginning of December. And then I have 1 more video that will come out in December, but sometime in mid-December. So if you are interested in more videos from me and you are new and you just stumbled on this, go ahead and subscribe. I would appreciate it. I'm just a small artist who is doing their best, trying to talk about things I like, and also draw my little guys, and also talk about my little guys. I'm going to be doing so much of that. So goodbye, and I hope you have a good one. Peace out. Bye.